Today, I'm sharing with you a powerful key to getting everything you can out of life in every single area. It is spiritual, it is ancient, and it is also deeply practical for 95% of people tuning in today. This will probably be the first teaching that you have ever really listened to on this subject, and that makes me excited. I believe that you're hearing this for a reason, and it is going to unlock something in your world. So welcome in, everybody, to the Stefan Lovegrove Show. Pleasure to meet you if we are meeting for the first time right now via podcast or via YouTube. My name is Stefan. All things are possible for the one who believes, and you are the one. I'm so glad that you are here. I mean it in the most literal sense when I say I believe it is no accident, not random, not coincidental that you have ended up here and on this video today. If you're with me on YouTube, would you take a second to like this video and subscribe to the channel? That helps us out so much. And it also makes your own feed and your own algorithm better. If you are listening on a podcast form, would you make sure that you are subscribed to the show wherever you get your podcasts? I appreciate you so much for that. Now, if you're on YouTube, you will see that I am no longer on video, and I'm actually going to be off camera for the remainder of this teaching today. As I was getting ready to press record and to start recording for you all this morning, I really just felt like I wanted to be able to take my time with this one. I wanted to have lots of space, lots of flexibility, and really to be able to make sure that I did it justice, that I shared everything that was on my heart to share the way that I felt led to share it. And to be blunt, that's just a little bit easier to do with an extended teaching when I don't feel the pressure of trying to make it happen in a one-take video recording with the bright lights of video in my face the whole time. So thank you for understanding, and thank you for being here. And whether you are tuning in via YouTube or the podcast, let me just encourage you. This is not really going to be a background kind of teaching. Okay, I just want to say that up front. If you want to turn on some good noise that will encourage, inspire, and empower you in the background, I will recommend my subconscious audio reprogramming. You can find it on the channel. Turn that on, play it while you work, play it while you sleep, play it in the background. That is a good episode, so to speak, to be used in the background. But this is not one of those things. This is an episode you're going to want to really give your attention to lean in, to take some notes, because it's going to be juicy and it's going to be powerful. And I have a little bit of an extended introduction for you today, but please know I'm not filling air with any of this. Every single idea that I share along the way is intentional. And it's all going somewhere today. So let me begin by just saying this. I really did not want to do this teaching. I have known that it was coming for months. God has been speaking to me about it. God has been teaching me things for it, literally for months now. But I had resistance. Let me know in the comments if you've ever been there. I feel like I'm supposed to do this. I feel like I'm called to this, but man, do I have some resistance. That is where I was at initially. Initially, I really didn't want to do this teaching. And yet, there is a spiritual truth that I know. And if you are on YouTube, there's going to be numerous moments today where I will invite you to type something out in the comments. You can leave a timestamp there so it's easy for people to find when they get to this video. But also, as always, I invite you to do that for you, to help you remember these truths and reflect on them a little more and integrate them a little bit more. So this is the first thing that I'm going to invite you to type out in the comments today. Spiritual truth. The more it scares you, the more important it may be for you to do it. The more it scares you, the more important it may be for you to do it. And I'm obviously not talking about harmful, destructive, dysfunctional decisions that do not come from love. I don't think I need to clarify that, but I'll say it just in case. But on so many levels, it is a truth. The more it scares you, the more important it actually may be for you to do it. And I wanted to speak to this as we begin today because there are people who spend their whole lives avoiding fear, numbing out the fear, running from anything that even has the possibility to trigger fear within them. And yet, don't we all know it to be true? Our destiny is often calling us to a place we've never been before. Our destiny is often calling us to something outside of our comfort zone, something that may be completely unfamiliar and new and foreign, and yes, something that may even scare us. And so I just wanted to begin by acknowledging I had a lot of resistance. I did not want to do this teaching initially, but I also know it to be true. The more it scares you, the more important it may be for you to do it. I also know from experience, God will interrupt your mind's default conversation, and certainly God will interrupt the collective conversation, all the noise that is everywhere out there, to birth something new and unique within you. And I feel so strongly that I need to emphasize this for a moment. This isn't in my notes, but I'm thinking now of the Erwin McManus quote, "They won't get it until you do it." That must be for somebody today. Let me know if it's you in the comments. Erwin McManus said, "They won't get it until you do it." Meaning, maybe you are called to go first. Maybe you are called to be a leader, a true pioneer in that space. Maybe there's nobody else doing it that way, saying it like that, showing up the way you feel called to show up, because it's your assignment. It's your calling, and nobody else has done it that way. Nobody else could do it that way, just like you, and only you can, and they won't get it until you do it. And I just want to remind or encourage somebody today, God will sometimes interrupt the conversation within you and the conversation around you to birth something new and unique. And that is really what started happening for me a few months back. I started feeling drawn to the concept of honor. Honor. Obviously, you know me. You know by now I'm going to give you the most in-depth definition on all levels that there ever could be in just a few minutes. But for now, I just want you to know I started feeling drawn to the concept of honor, and it surprised me. I didn't expect that. I wasn't preparing for that when I entered this year. But I started feeling drawn to the concept of honor. I started feeling drawn to it both for myself and for this community. And let me just acknowledge here, if that word or that concept turns you off, or it feels boring, or it feels completely irrelevant to your life and the results you need and want right now, believe me, I get it. But also, would you believe me on this? Would you trust me on this? There's a reason you're hearing this teaching. Over the last few months, I have discovered there is a reason I was drawn to this. And I believe today's experience is going to surprise you. This isn't accidental. You are here for a reason. So stay with me. At least get curious enough to lean into the first section of this teaching and see if it surprises you a little bit. But I can assure you, I was not expecting to focus on or learn about, much less teach about, this particular concept this year. A lot of the reason that I had so much resistance to this concept was understandably, in what will come as a surprise to no one, related to my upbringing. Many of you know I grew up in a hyper-strict, hyper-conservative, fundamentalist religious bubble. And that obviously shaped my childhood, shaped the experience that I had with God and spirituality early on, and really shaped so much of the journey that led me to who I am today. You can understand, if I was to take a concept like honor and then try to find what it meant, what it looked like, what was the association in the world that I grew up in, there would probably be nothing healthy, nothing positive, nothing that I would want to get on here and share with you today. So I want to acknowledge I had a lot of resistance to this concept, both to learning about it and to teaching it, because I didn't want anything to do with the kind of rigid, fear-based, authoritarian kind of culture that is all too familiar to me. Also, and thank you again for letting me take my time here with an extended introduction, but all of it very intentional. I also have been aware, as I've prepared for this teaching and prayed over it, I don't feel like I've fully mastered this in my life. What I'm teaching, what I'm sharing, what we're about to walk through together today, let me be very clear. I don't feel like I'm an expert in this. I don't feel like I am a 100% full embodiment of all of this yet. I don't feel like this is something I have fully mastered, even though I am growing in it and working on it and reflecting on it deeply. So for a lot of different reasons, I had resistance to learning about this, and I had even more resistance to teaching about this. But I knew that there was something for us here. Not just for me, but for our community, maybe even for you specifically and personally. I knew there was something for us here. And the longer that I spent time with this truth, I felt like God started to say to me, Stephan, it might actually be more powerful for you to be the one sharing this message with your community, because they know what you've been through. They know where you came from. They know that you are not coming from an authoritarian or a dogmatic or a conservative, traditional, organized religion kind of place when it comes to this concept. So they will actually hear you when you share this. And just like you were willing and able to hear and receive something new, they will be able to hear and receive something new. And maybe, despite all your resistance, it was like God said to me, maybe you are the exact right messenger for this. See, I believe this is a key that many of us are not even aware of. Many of us are not at all familiar with. Many of us have never really been taught in any way. Certainly not a healthy way. Certainly not a helpful way. And therefore, we're not using the key. The key exists. And it is a perfect match for various locks, various gates, various doorways in our lives. But nobody's ever taught us. So it's like we don't have the key. We don't know the key exists. We can't use the key. And so there's a whole world of possibilities that isn't open to us. There's a whole world that we're not experiencing. Why? This is a truth. You can write this down or type this out in the comments. What you've never been taught, you cannot experience. What you've never been taught, you cannot experience. This is why I'm so passionate about learning. This is why I'm so passionate about teaching everything that has worked for me. This is why I'm so passionate about ideas. Because yes, I understand there are things that we can get from God directly. And yes, I understand there are experiences that we can organically find ourselves in. But there are so many things that have changed my life that showed up as an idea, and somebody had to share it with me. I will always remind you that ideas are the currency of the universe. God is trying to get something to you in the form of an idea. God is trying to give you something in the form of an idea. God is trying to bless you right now, perhaps in the form of an idea. I am so passionate about ideas because what you've never been taught, you don't have the chance to experience. And I just know this is a key that will unlock something for you. The best part is, this is not a webinar. There is nothing for sale. I have nothing to sell you when I talk about a key that's going to unlock something. Just to be clear, I'm talking about something on a much deeper level. The level of spiritual law and principle, something that is built into the universe. That's what I mean. That's the level I'm talking about when I say this is a key that's going to unlock something for you. And once you've been taught, once you've learned, once you know, you have the key. And you can access everything that this key enables you to access. I'm almost done with the extended introduction here, I promise. But one last thing I want to mention here. I wanted to say up at the top that this was like a side B kind of teaching, meaning this is not where you should begin if you're brand new to me. This is one that you should listen to when you're a little further down the line in your journey with my content. This is for people who have been in the community for a long while. I was going to give this whole disclaimer, and I literally had it in my notes to tell you, this is a side B teaching. Just be aware. But then yesterday, during my time with God, I felt like God said to me, Stefan, this teaching is going to change people's culture, change their lives, and change the world. And yes, it may feel radical to some. It may feel new and unfamiliar to some. It may feel revolutionary to some, but I heard so clearly yesterday, it was like God said, Stephan, don't push anyone away from this transformation. If they're not ready, if they don't want to hear it, that's okay. That's on them. Let them decide. But don't send them away. Don't try to repel them. Don't push anyone away from this transformation. So I said, okay, God, I take it back. This is not a B-side teaching. This is a teaching for everyone who has ears to hear it. And I'm going to share with you all that has been changing my life around this concept of honor. Let's take a moment and pray together, and then we'll fully dive in. God, at the beginning of this teaching, and in the spirit of this teaching, I acknowledge you as the source of all that there is. You are the unconditional love that has been there for me all along. You are the one, the power, the presence, the infinite loving intelligence that inspires everything that I do. God, more than anything else, when I deliver any of these teachings, I desire that people would connect to you at the deepest level, that they would know how loved they are at the deepest level. And so I ask that you would guide me, lead me, speak through me now, even as I record. May I deliver this exactly as it is intended to be delivered for maximum impact, maximum transformation, and maximum results. God, I feel that our community is on a precipice, on the brink of something new, something major, something life-changing. And this is the key. This is what we need in this moment. This is the gateway that will take us there. So I pray that each and every one of us would receive it fully today. I pray that you would speak through me and translate in real time so that everybody can get exactly what they need in the most personal, individualized, customized way. God, I pray that this would be one principle that unlocks so many others, that connects to so many others, and that it would profoundly change the life of every single person praying with me now, inside and out. I speak this word in the name of Jesus, who said, all things are possible for the one who believes. And we are the ones today. And so it is, and so we are. Amen, amen, amen. Let me know in the comments if you are here with me and ready to go, ready to learn today. The truth is, I could really have made this a series. And I slightly even thought about, just like I did with the faith teaching that turned into the series about increasing your faith. You can find it archived on the channel if you haven't watched it yet. But in a similar vein, I actually thought about, do I want to turn this into a series? And I didn't feel called to do that. I just felt called to give it to you here in this teaching all at once. It's going to be lengthy. It's going to be in depth, but it's going to be worth it. So I'm glad you're here. I hope you're ready to go. And of course, I want to begin with a definition. In just a moment, we're going to start going through 5 keys. But before we get there, in true Stephan Lovegrove fashion, we have to talk about a definition. And so we begin today by discussing what exactly is the definition of honor. Now, because you're, of course, not listening to this live, though we are fully connected across all space and time in this moment like it was live, but you have the ability to press pause, right? So I would actually invite you, if it's convenient to do so, maybe hit pause for a second and just check in with yourself. Maybe type it out, jot something down, write it in your notes even. When you think about honor, when you hear that word or think about that concept, what first comes to mind? You can pause if you'd like to just sit with that for a moment. And again, maybe to take note of anything that shows up. If you were to guess, if you were to have to come up with an answer, what is the definition of honor? I'm curious what you would say. And I love when these are an interactive experience. That brings me so much joy later on. So if you want, you can even comment and let me know. What is your mental association with this concept? Good, bad, neutral. There is no wrong answer here. And if you were required to give a definition, what do you think the definition is? Let me know in the comments anything that you'd like to share. And then I'm going to read you, and we're going to unpack for a few moments the definition of honor so we can get into our 5 keys today, okay? Definition of honor: to acknowledge, to respect, to esteem, or set a high value on, and last but not least, to give weight to. And now I want to give you a 1-sentence description. Like I said, a 1-sentence summary, 1 sentence that encapsulates the energy of what all of this is about, that I'm quoting from a man named Mike Murdoch. And the sentence is this. Somebody please type this out in the comments. Honor is the celebration of goodness. Honor is the celebration of goodness. I want everybody to write that down or type that out. And I pray that this new paradigm, this sentence, and even this precise definition would already begin to change the way you think about this concept. Maybe you can already see people might have misused this concept. People might have selfishly or inappropriately used this concept for their own purposes in the past. And it might have gotten wrapped up in a lot of authoritarian ideas and power structures and ego. But hear something new today. Be open to something new today. Honor is the celebration of goodness. That is my favorite definition. Again, that particular quote and sentence coming from Dr. Mike Murdoch, and I want us to use it for our purposes today so that you can recognize honor is not about pedestals and ego and superiority. That was never the point. That is not what this spiritual principle is about. Honor is something that flows in all directions, in every sphere of our lives. And that is an important distinction there. See, usually when people use this concept in a way that might turn you or I off from it, usually what they're saying is, I demand honor. I require honor. You have to honor me. Maybe It's an etiquette thing. It's a manners thing. Perhaps you think about an older person getting frustrated with a little kid. We don't do it this way. You need to respect this or that. You need to respect, right? And so maybe that is the association we might have in our mind. But I want you to realize honor is something that is meant to flow in all directions, in all relationships, in every sphere of our lives. Honor is the celebration of goodness. To acknowledge someone fully, that is honor. To treat human beings with dignity and respect and grace, that is honor. To esteem people just because, that is honor. To set a high value on people, understanding they are the most valuable thing on the planet, that is honor. To give weight to someone, letting them know that they matter to us. That is honor. Honor is the celebration of goodness. Stefan here, popping in after the full recording. You're probably going to hear me do this a couple of times, but like I said, it is so important to me to get this one right and not to leave anything out, and I've been working on it for so long. So one additional aspect that I want to bring into the discussion here before we resume the already recorded teaching when it comes to the definition of honor is this aspect, and please write this down, type this one out as well. Honor is the recognition of difference or distinction. Honor is the recognition of difference or distinction. Now, I have studied this angle, and it was in kind of my larger database and larger notes as a whole. For some reason, it did not get transferred and make it into my main notes file for this teaching. So for that reason, I'm not going to refer back to this one over and over again as much as we go through 5 keys in just a moment here. But I want you to have this in your notes. I want you to write this one down as well. And I want you to listen for it, because even if I'm not saying it explicitly quite as much as the other definitions, I want you to listen for it and look for it all throughout the teaching. The recognition of difference or distinction. Particularly, I'm just going to give a little preview here and say, this helps a lot when we think about receiving from an imperfect place. This helps a lot when we think about bringing out the best in others and how we relate to other people in general in terms of this principle. So I want you to look for this definition, because honor says, I recognize the distinction within you. What makes you unique? What makes you special? I recognize your contribution. I recognize what you bring to the table. I recognize what you have the ability to offer that I don't have, that maybe no one else has in that exact way. Had to throw that in. Thank you for letting me. Honor is the recognition of distinction and difference in somebody else. And of course, in case it isn't obvious, you also want to apply that to yourself. And when you think about what it means to honor yourself, of course, this definition also applies. Recognize what is unique, distinctive, and special. One of a kind that God has put inside of you. Now, we're going to unpack the spiritual principles of honor in just a moment, and how it is a key and all of the things that it unlocks for us. So stay tuned, because it is about to get so good. But there's one more place I want to go here on the definition. The Jewish word that is often translated honor in some of those early ancient texts is in the original language the word kavod. And forgive me if I am not pronouncing that perfectly. But the Jewish word kavod is a word that is often translated honor in the ancient texts that many of us are familiar with. And what is so beautiful to me as we, again, continue exploring the definition here is the word really means to make something matter to you. This is, again, the idea of acknowledgement, setting a high value, giving weight to something. So many times when we read the word honor in ancient spiritual principle, the word being used is, again, kavod, and it means to make something matter to you. And I just want to suggest today, we all could use more of that. More of that energy, more of that experience in general in our lives. It almost sounds silly and ridiculous and obvious to word it this way, but do you want a life that matters more or less? Do you want to make memories that matter more or less? We all could use a little more of this. And may I just say, even if you were to disagree with 90% of what I teach today, I believe you could take this one idea with you. And this one idea alone would have so much power for you. This idea of kavod, making something matter. I want to challenge you here. Live life as if the little moments matter greatly. And I promise you, you will have a meaningful life. Never be too cool, family, for things to matter, for people to matter, for moments to matter, for little things to matter that turn out to be the big things. Never be too cool for things to matter. I want to suggest today, life is sweeter when things get to matter to you. Life is richer when things get to matter to you. Life is far more beautiful when things get to matter to you. And so, again, just spending a few more moments in this definition territory before we go through the 5 keys. I want you to see today you have infinite opportunities in your life to make moments matter. And after you hear this teaching, I believe you're going to start recognizing these moments all over the place. You'll be listening to a song and suddenly aware this moment matters. You'll be with a family member, with a child, with a dear friend, and you'll suddenly realize, whoa, this moment matters. You'll be writing an email or leading a session or in the middle of something for work, and this teaching will come back to you and it will suddenly hit you. Wait a minute, this moment matters so much. And I want it to matter. I choose for it to matter. Life is better when we let the moments matter. This is what the idea of kavod is all about. And so I pray again that your paradigms about honor are already changing as you listen to this. Thinking about the idea of the celebration of goodness, something that flows freely in every direction in all the spheres of your life. The choice for things to matter. And as you sit with all of this, I want to make a confession, okay? I was first introduced to the concept of honor. And even specifically, this framework, even specifically, this word of kavod, I was introduced to this all the way back in college. The seed of the idea was planted back then. But I remembered something so vividly as I was preparing for this teaching, because something happened very soon after I was introduced to the concept of honor, the concept of kavod while I was in college. And I remembered it all so vividly as I was getting ready. Soon after, I was introduced to the idea of honor in this way. I witnessed my first major scandal. My first public controversy with people that I was somehow connected to. My first major cancellation. To be clear, not that I was getting canceled or right at the center of it, but watching it, witnessing it, observing something like that for the very first time. And so I remember soon after I was introduced to this concept, I witnessed a scandalous moment, a controversy moment, a cancellation moment. And I saw people get publicly embarrassed and humiliated and attacked. I saw people fighting for someone's career to come to an end for the very first time. I witnessed all of this as an observer, and I thought to myself, probably partly consciously and partly subconsciously, but I thought to myself, wow, I never, ever, ever want to be on the receiving end of that. I never want to be in that position. I never want that to happen to me for any reason. And without realizing it, I believe that this moment subconsciously redirected me. And before I knew it, I was no longer looking to find the treasure or celebrate the goodness. No, I was suddenly looking and prioritizing, how can I make sure that the shame never falls on me? That I never end up in that position, that I am never embarrassed, that I am never criticized, that I am never attacked, that I am never shamed in some way, that I am never attempted to be canceled. I don't know if that's a verb or I said that the right way, but I really do believe this was the conclusion in my brain at the time. I've got to make sure that that never happens to me. And I wanted to take my time talking through this for a moment because I felt led to ask you today, could it be that without realizing it, somewhere along the way, you started living your life in avoidance of something? You can feel into this. You can see if anything comes forward, if anything comes to mind. But I felt called to ask, have you started living your life in avoidance of something? And if so, how much is that costing you? How much energy is that taking up? And it was so fascinating to me to realize I was introduced to this concept in college. And I thought, wow, That would make for a beautiful life. That would make for a fulfilling life. That would make for a meaningful, love-filled, connection-filled life. But then soon after, I felt the potential for shame in a way I had not personalized before. And I thought, wow, the most important thing is that I don't end up there. And I wanted to bring this up because we're talking about definitions, and I've read you the definition of honor. I've shared this idea, honor is the celebration of goodness. I've shared this idea, honor is the choice to make something matter, to let someone know that they matter. And I also want to throw into the discussion here, what is the opposite of honor? Because I believe the opposite of honor is shame. The opposite of honor is shame. And it's interesting. I didn't realize what a pivot I was subconsciously making in that moment. Beginning to live my life in avoidance. Beginning to live my life thinking that my number one job was to avoid shame. I didn't realize it, but the opposite of honor is shame. And I just want to acknowledge here as we really get into this teaching together. When I look around at the collective, at the online conversation, at what is there and prevalent and loud in the world, in culture today, to me, at least from my perspective, it feels clear there is not much honor, but man, there is a lot of shame. And I actually believe there's a correlation here. We don't really believe in honor. We don't really have a value of honor. We don't really see a place for honor in the collective. But then maybe it shouldn't be a surprise to us, given what the opposite of honor is, that we are drowning in shame. And that is so sad to me because shame is on nearly every emotional scale that exists, the lowest emotional experience possible. Shame is a feeling of wrongness that you can't escape. Shame says there is something fundamentally wrong or broken or unlovable about who you are. I don't know that there's anything more paralyzing and destructive and terrifying to people than the experience of shame. And we are drowning in shame in the collective right now. What I see more clearly than ever, and let me know in the comments if you think I'm on to something here or you disagree with me. All opinions welcome. But what I see very clearly is we don't value or see a need for honor right now in the collective. So we have ended up in a world that is absolutely overflowing with shame. And because we're terrified of it, because we don't know what to do with it, because we don't know how to end it, how to escape it, how to guarantee that we will never be a victim of it, we just end up projecting shame onto others to try to escape it ourselves. And I'm going to speak to that pattern in more detail later on in this teaching today. But I really believe that explains so much of what is happening, particularly online and on social media at the time of this recording. The opposite of honor is shame. and we have a culture that is filled with shame. And we are so terrified to end up in the shameful position ourselves that we will project shame onto everybody else as a defense mechanism. But it doesn't ultimately work. And we never feel safe. And we end up in a place where there is not much honor. There is just so much shame. So today I'm here to speak to the principle of honor, the decision that you and I can make to celebrate goodness. And again, honor and shame are opposites. You're going to see that correlation all the way through this teaching. But I now want to begin to walk us through 5 ways honor is the key that unlocks everything good. 5 ways honor is the key that unlocks everything good. And I pray that even if you're listening to this on the go, you will find some time to jot these down, to take at least a Cliff Notes version of notes, or perhaps to return to this and listen all over again, because you're going to want this information. 5 ways honor is the key that unlocks everything good. And as we dive in here, I want to talk for just a moment about the idea of something being a key. Please listen very carefully here. This is an important principle for us along the way. You know, the most expensive Rolls Royce in the world is worth over $30 million. At the time of this recording, it is priced over $30 million to take it home. I was going to say to take it home today. I don't think you can take it home today. You have to order it. But nonetheless, it is one of the top 3 most expensive vehicles in the world. It is the most expensive Rolls Royce on the planet. Stay with me, whether you're a car person or not. Of course, I'm going somewhere here. The most expensive Rolls Royce vehicle in the entire world is over $30 million US at the time of this recording. And by the way, it is extravagant. It even has a dining set and a champagne fridge built into the vehicle. It is wild. But did you know? Even that vehicle, the most expensive Rolls Royce in the world, priced at over $30 million, even that vehicle has a key. And it's not even that unusual of a key. It's literally a key fob. There is a key fob for the most expensive one in the world. And did you know, even that vehicle worth 30 plus million without a key is useless. Without a key, experiences 0 movement. Without a key, even that vehicle is still a parked car that can't go anywhere. Now, it is valuable. It has intrinsic value. It has intrinsic worth. Make no mistake about it. But though it is valuable, it is not functional. And without a key, it will not drive. It will never leave a lot. It will never go anywhere. I know the analogy is obvious, but I pray that it speaks to you, and I pray that it sticks with you, how vital it is that you have the key. Because just like even the most expensive vehicle in the world is useless without a key, there are keys that open up something in our lives. This is why I teach laws and principles. This is why I talk about the precise ways that faith moves things in the invisible realm. This is why, like I was just ranting about a few moments ago, I'm so passionate about ideas. And the fact that ideas are everything. Ideas are the currency of the universe, because sometimes you are missing a key, and you may be so infinite, so powerful, so talented, so gifted, so capable. But if you don't have the right key, you'll be stuck. And you'll be stuck until that changes. You'll be stuck until you get the key. Now, nothing is taking away your value. Nothing is taking away your intrinsic worth. But if you want to turn the lock, if you want to turn the power on, if you want to go somewhere, you've got to have the key. And by the way, this is why I at least mention sowing and reaping and giving intentionally in every single teaching without fail. That is not a coincidence. That is not a mistake. It is because I know that's a key. And a key that is often not talked about. A key that I personally used for now, at the time of this recording, 14 years in my life, but for the longest time, never talked about publicly. And I know that is a key that sometimes even the most successful leaders are missing. And it is enough to render even the most expensive car in the world severely impaired to not have the key. So this is a key. I'm going to share with you, in fact, 5 things we could consider keys today. Honor is the key overall. And we're going to go through together 5 ways. Honor is the key that unlocks everything good. Number 1. Key number 1 that I want to share with you when it comes to honor today. Honor allows us to fully receive the gift in someone or something. Key number 1. Honor allows us to fully receive the gift in someone or something. Now, one of my very first and earliest mentors taught me this principle in college, and I am so grateful he did, because it changed my life, and it has stuck with me ever since. I will never forget, one day he said, "There is a scripture that teaches we have this treasure hidden in earthen vessels," or in more modern translations, it says, hidden in jars of clay. Shout out 90s church kids. If you know, you know. Let me know in the comments. But my mentor said to me, there is a reason that the proverb says we have this treasure buried in earthen vessels, buried in jars of clay. And he said that principle is telling us there is something valuable out there in the world for you. There is gold out there for you. There is a gift out there for you. There is something you need. There is something you want. But this text is telling us treasure is hidden in the dirt. Treasure is hidden in something very messy, something very ordinary, something unappealing, something you would pass over. One person said it this way when it comes to this principle: something you need is within someone you may not fully enjoy. I would add to that, could also be in someone who you may not think like or believe like. Could also be in something that is not at all your style. Let's put all of that together. Something you need could be within someone you don't fully enjoy, someone who you may not think like or believe the same things as, or in something that is not your style. And so to go back to this conversation, my college mentor said to me, you decide, will you receive the treasure or will you be turned off by the dirt? Will you receive the gold or will you walk away because of the mess? Will you receive the gift or will you miss it because of the packaging that it came in? And when I tell you, this lesson has stuck with me ever since. And to use a different analogy, it is what has enabled me to eat the fish and spit out the bones, as they say, in all of my learning ever since. See, there really are a lot of people who only want to learn from somebody that they think almost exactly like, someone that they share every belief with, somebody who looks like them, somebody who feels familiar and reminds them of them, somebody who is their exact style, their exact vibe, their exact preference. There really are so many people who have that philosophy. That is what they limit themselves to. That is all they want to learn from. And I am so thankful that all those years ago, I had a mentor teach me, if that is your philosophy, you're going to miss out on a lot. Because so many times in your life, the thing you need, the thing you want, the exact answer you're looking for is going to show up. And the packaging might be surprising, but don't send it away. I just want to pause here and say, if you listen to me regularly, or you are even just listening today because somehow you ended up here or somebody shared this teaching with you, and maybe you're thinking, I don't know if this guy is exactly my style. I don't know what to think yet. I don't know if I believe all the same things that he believes when it comes to spirituality. If that's you, I want to speak to you very directly and say, amazing, amazing, amazing. I am so glad you're here. I'm so glad you're open to fully receive whatever gift might be here for you today. Because when we decide not to be available for a gift because of the packaging, because there's some dirt, there's some dust, there's some clay, there's some mess, there's some human. When we do that, only we miss out. The treasure doesn't stop being the treasure. The gold doesn't stop being the gold. The gift doesn't stop being the gift. We miss out. So I want to be very clear today and say, if you are here pushing through some differences, some things that are not familiar, adapting however you have to as you listen in order to receive, I honor you and I celebrate you because you are choosing to give yourself the goal. But I want to speak to this principle. Key number one, that honor allows us to fully receive the gift. The gift in someone or something. I want to speak to this key today because I really do perceive we have it backwards in the collective right now. And again, let me know if you think I'm way off base. Let me know if this resonates. All opinions welcome, but I think we have it backwards in the collective. I think the tendency that has been instilled in each of us is to find every reason to reject a treasure because of any possible mud or dirt or dust or mess or packaging or association or anything around it. I think that's the tendency that has been instilled in all of us. And to be clear, I'm saying this with no guilt, no negativity, no judgment. If you're listening today and you feel like, wow, this does resonate, understand, I don't think you created this pattern. I believe that you inherited it, just like I inherited it. And when I look around in the collective, I see a pattern that we miss out on so much treasure because we are hyper vigilant to find the imperfections. I knew it wasn't as good. They had a human moment. I knew they weren't all that. I never bought into the hype. And listen, in case this disclaimer is needed, I am, of course, not saying that integrity does not matter and that it's not important for people to practice what they preach, that it's not important for us to be who we say we are. But I am talking about today the trend in the collective to, by default, reject a treasure, write off a treasure, not even believe there's any kind of treasure there we could possibly want because of any dust or dirt or even the risk of that. I just think we're not better because of this. That it hasn't made us better and we're not better off. That in the end, in fact, we're missing out. And so today, I believe, just like every day, we get to decide, will we experience the treasure or the dirt? You know, I want to say here, some people listening today, the reason that everything feels so dark and heavy and intense to you. And I'm not talking about global conflict. I'm not talking about injustice. I'm not talking about human rights. But maybe when it comes to social media, when it comes to your relationships or your feed, when it comes to your industry, for some of you listening today, the reason that everything feels so heavy is because you have trained yourself. Again, you inherited this pattern to find the dirt everywhere you go. Your mind is always looking for the dirt. Your mind is always looking for what's the weakness? Have they messed up? Are they fully in integrity in every single way? Your mind is trained to look for the dirt. And let me be clear here. I'm not denying that there is dirt. In fact, I would say the opposite and say it's actually not going to help you to put any leader on this planet on some high up pedestal, as if they're so separate, as if they're so different, as if they cannot be touched or tarnished by human things. The truth is, every single leader, even the ones that you love the most, respect the most, have learned the most from, every single one of them has some strengths and weaknesses, has some blind spots, has some imperfections. But the longer that I have been a leader, the more convinced I have become that perhaps maturity looks like not letting any sign of imperfect humanity cause you to shut down and run. Would you believe me if I told you there were people running emotional programs of avoidance in the name of integrity? People operating from shame and a core drive that comes from wanting to avoid shame but hiding it behind values? Would you believe me if I told you there is a way to fight for something online that looks very noble, that can be presented as very noble, very spiritual, very values-based, but at the core is projection? And I just think part of what maturity looks like is when you see someone's humanness, you don't run automatically. At the first sign of conflict, you don't run automatically. When you realize someone has a weakness, someone has a blind spot, someone is not perfect and able to sustain your pedestal in every single way, you don't run automatically like you used to. There's a common idea out there that I really felt led to speak to for a moment. And to be very transparent, this is actually Stefan popping in after recording the bulk of this teaching because it felt so important to come back and insert this point. At least within my experience in the online coaching world, there is this idea that has been spoken to me many, many times. And people say, beware of a mentor's blind spots. I don't know why I'm making it sound like Pirates of the Caribbean at Disneyland. But they say, beware of a mentor's blind spots because you will inherit them. Let me know in the comments if you've ever heard this advice, that you will inherit your mentor's blind spots. Now, again, as with many things I'm acknowledging here, I'm not saying that there isn't a principle or a truth or something valid and, maybe worthy to be discussed there. But here's the interesting thing I've found after being a student in the personal development arena for almost 15 years now. Every single mentor is going to have some blind spots. You know how I know that? Because they're human. And just like a car has to have certain help in place because it's impossible to create a car with zero blind spots, every single one of us, every single human, every single leader is going to have some blind spots. This is why we get support. This is why we have coaches and therapists and all of these resources. But I wanted to speak to this for a moment because people often say this in such a fear-mongering way, and it often gives you the message. If you realize they have a weakness, if you realize they haven't mastered this thing, if you realize they're struggling or imperfect over here, you better run. And you better find a mentor that doesn't have any blind spots, or else you will inherit them. I'm having fun saying this all in such a funny way. But, if you really take that advice literally, what you will actually end up doing is hopping from one person to the next with so much judgment over and over and over again. And the minute that you encounter someone's humanity, the minute that they are not the perfect teacher and embodiment and master of every single thing out there, you will be on the run looking for someone who is. And all of this, by the way, will simultaneously be undermining how you see yourself, because you will deep down be worried about your own blind spots, your own messiness, your own weaknesses or issues or struggles at the moment. And what if nobody wants to hire you? Nobody wants to work with you. Nobody wants to invest in you because they don't want to inherit your weaknesses, your blind spots. And so I want to suggest, what if we could receive the gift from someone, not needing it to be the end all, be all, one and only thing we need for our entire lives? But what if we could receive the gift from someone, and it's okay if there's some dust on it. It's okay if the packaging isn't our favorite. And it's even okay if that person, that teacher, that mentor is a human and has their own strengths and weaknesses, and maybe even some places that they're not as strong. What if that's okay? I was just speaking to a friend about this the other day, and we were talking about a faith environment that they had spent time in that taught them so many incredible principles, so many ideas, so many wonderful truths that they are still working with and operating in to this day. And yet, they were sharing with me, this environment did not have a wealth consciousness. This environment did not really believe abundance was spiritual. This environment did not teach them anything they could really work with money. Now, I want to use this as a perfect example of what I'm talking about here, because we can acknowledge very neutrally, with no judgment, this environment might have had a blind spot around money. And by the way, a lot of you probably relate to that when it comes to spirituality and places that you have learned so much from, but nobody taught you laws of prosperity in a way that you could actually work with. And I was telling this friend, what is so beautiful to me is that you get to honor and receive and take freely everything that worked for you from that place. All of the lessons, all of the healing, all of the growth. You don't have to throw it away. We don't have to do this. I'm scared of inheriting their weaknesses. I'm scared of inheriting their blind spots, so I'm just going to reject it all. And I was encouraging this person the other day. You get to take all of the gifts that were there for you. And then when it comes to pieces they didn't give you, pieces that you didn't get there, pieces that you now want to fill in the gaps, you get to do that as well. And there's an infinite world out there that can give you those pieces. And what a gift that we have access to technology, to so many people, so many resources, so much incredible content and teaching all over the world, that wherever there is a gap, wherever there is a weakness, wherever there is a blind spot, or just simply something you want to get a little more, something you want to fill in with a little more, you can do that. But we don't have to look for the perfect person or the perfect leader, the perfect place that has 100% of the end all be all, everything that we need. Can we grow beyond that immature paradigm today, family? You know, one ancient text puts it this way: receive a prophet in the name of a prophet, and you will receive a prophet's reward. Receive a prophet in the name of a prophet, and you will receive a prophet's reward. Now, I know that may not feel very relevant or relatable as you first hear it, but go with me here for a moment, because it's not about titles and semantics and prestige here. It is actually an energetic principle of honor. When this text talks about receiving someone in the name of a prophet, it is saying, if you receive someone as being there from God, there on purpose, with a reason, with intentionality, with something to offer you, if you receive someone that way, you will indeed receive everything that God was trying to give you through that instrument. However, if you do not receive someone in that way, you won't. They won't be impacted. They won't be hurt. They won't miss out, but you will be impacted. If you don't receive someone in that way, you miss out. And I wanted to read this text, and I wanted to emphasize, it doesn't say receive someone as perfect. It says receive someone as a prophet. And again, I know prophet isn't a normal word that we use in this day and age, but go with me here, and God, I pray that you would help me explain this well. It doesn't say receive someone as perfect, because that's impossible. That would set us up for failure and disappointment every time. And the truth is, whoever we are receiving, whoever we are learning from, whoever we are accepting, hey, they might be in my life for a reason. What if I open up to that? What if I receive that? We're acknowledging here, they might be human. They may have imperfections. They may not be your style. They may not be your preference in every way. They may not be your favorite person in the world. And they certainly may have things that you don't like or agree with or resonate with. But if you can receive, I think God can speak to me here. I'm going to trust that everything's happening exactly as it's supposed to. And I'm going to be open to what my life is delivering me right now. If you can trust that and receive on that level, you get a gift. And you get a gift that people who weren't willing to receive in that way will completely miss out on. So key number 1 today, honor allows us to fully receive the gift in someone or something. I believe there are gifts waiting for you, hiding in plain sight all over your life. But will you miss them because of the packaging? Will you overlook them because on the surface it doesn't immediately and obviously look like a treasure? The choice is yours. And that brings me to key number 2. The second way honor is the key that unlocks everything good in our lives. Key number 2, honor brings out the best version of someone. Somebody please type that out in the comments. Key number 2, honor brings out the best version of someone. Now, I already set up a concept that we're going to need to refer to here, because in our definition section, I asked, what is the opposite of honor? And I shared with you the opposite of honor is shame. And we have a culture that is full of shame everywhere we turn. And I don't think that's a gift. I don't think we're better off for it. But notice here the currency of shame. As I was preparing for this teaching, I heard this example, and I feel a little scared to use it because this is massive in pop culture. But as neutrally as possible, I'm just going to use this example as I feel called. Can we talk about, even in a recent public rap battle, okay? And I'm not here to weigh in on who did what, who won, who lost, who was telling the truth, and all the allegations. But I just feel called to say what an obvious example. And someone pointed this out to me right on time as I was preparing for this teaching. What an example of the currency of shame. How much can you shame somebody? What can you bring up that delivers the punch of shame to someone? Can you shut somebody up with enough shame, right? Notice the currency of shame that is often so used in our society today. And I want to suggest on key number 2 here, shame creates the worst version of somebody, but honor brings out the best in someone. I want to suggest to you today, key number 2 here, shame creates the worst version of someone, while honor brings out the best in somebody. And please type that out in the comments with the timestamp for us. You know, I shared with you in a recent teaching, and I told you I was going to return to it. There is a story recorded where Jesus is passing through a city, and it tells us he couldn't do any miracles there. He couldn't. Which is so interesting because the text is not indicating that he ran out of supply, that he ran out of love, that he ran out of compassion, that he ran out of grace, that he ran out of strength or power or purpose. It certainly doesn't say he wouldn't or he didn't want to. But I've always been fascinated, as I shared with you before. It tells us he couldn't do any miracles there. And he goes on to say, as an explanation, a prophet is never without honor except in his hometown. A prophet is never without honor except in his hometown. Now, again, if you can get past some of the ancient language here and you can adapt and you can receive the gold and the gritty that is here for you, that principle explains so much. Let me pause here and say, I can't count the number of clients that I have talked to over the years, and they were so confused. Why doesn't my partner fully see the vision? Why doesn't my family get it? Why don't my parents believe in the thing I'm trying to build? And let me be clear, I want you to have all the love and support in the world, and you are worthy to have all the love and support in the world. But I have quoted this principle to so many clients over the years. A prophet is never without honor except in his hometown. To remind them, it's very normal that the people closest to us sometimes miss it. That they don't always get it. That they don't always fully grasp it on the deepest level the way that we do. And I have just seen this play out so many times over the years. It is normal that family is sometimes the last to get it. And that the people we grew up with are sometimes the last to come around, the last to see the vision, the last to believe in it. And I just think it gets easier if you don't set yourself up for unnecessary pain here. Telling yourself, well, if anybody, they should get it. They should value it. They should see the vision. Actually, it has been true and documented as a phenomenon for thousands of years. A prophet is never without honor except in his hometown. What if it's okay that they don't get it right now? What if it's okay if it takes them a long time to see the vision? What if it does not diminish or discredit you in any way that relatives or family or parents or people you grew up with don't understand your gift and your significance and your assignment? God, I feel this so strongly that somebody is being set free today from a whole layer of imposter syndrome and inferiority and insecurity that said, what does it mean about me if they're not on board and they don't get it and they don't see it? And I believe that you're releasing that so gently and effortlessly today as you hear this truth. See, here's what this truth is really about. It's talking about the way that significance and familiarity often operate as a seesaw. Think about this. If you want to envision a seesaw, often the more significant somebody feels to us, the less familiarity we have with them. And the reverse is equally true. Often, the more familiar we are with someone, by default, I say this very neutrally, not as an inherent negative, but the more familiar we are with someone, the less significant they will feel. This is why, if you go to any kind of celebrity event, if you're at a concert or a red carpet and there are 5 barriers standing between you and a public figure, if there's somebody you want to have a conversation with and there's 3 layers of gatekeepers you have to go through, right? In all of these kinds of scenarios, we perceive them as more significant because there's a distance, there's a lack of familiarity, there's a lack of closeness and connection and even ability to connect. But isn't it also true, if you were to date that person, if you were to hear them burp up close, if you were to know the wild racing thoughts that kept them up at night, if you were to be with them through their mundane moments and their darkest moments, if you were to see all of the good and the bad and the ugly, not just the glitz, not just the glam, not just the moments under the lights, isn't it true? If you were to up the familiarity, the celebrity factor would simultaneously decrease. I pray that I'm explaining this well. Let me know in the comments. Do you see what I mean about it's a seesaw? Often, the more significant they are to us, the further they are away. And the more familiar we are with them, just by human nature, the less significant they feel. Now, I think it's important to understand this phenomenon, to understand that this is in fact human nature. But I also want to say, we don't just have to accept the seesaw. There's a reason that I worded it that way, that this often functions like a seesaw by default. But by default is not the only setting that we have available. And I am very grateful to say there have been mentors who have impacted me. I think about my grandparents and the way that they are on a phone call every single time I speak to them. And there are specific dear friends and loved ones that come to my mind even now. And in all of these categories, with the mentors, with the grandparents, with the friends and loved ones, I am so grateful to say I have beautiful examples of people who have modeled for me. We know each other so well. We are so close. We are so connected. We are so familiar. We are so intimate with one another in all the details of life, but we're not going to lose the significance. We're not going to lose the specialness. We're not going to lose the love. And this is a great example of the idea that honor is choosing for something to matter. I specifically think about here, and I want to shout out every time I get on the phone, particularly with my grandfather. He makes sure to end every single call thanking me for calling, letting me know how proud of me he is, letting me know how glad he is that we got to talk, how special that is, how much the phone call means to him. And he's done this for years. And it could be an everyday, mundane, nothing significant to talk about phone call, where there was nothing special, nothing out of the ordinary, no big accomplishment. And yet what he has modeled for me that I wanted to shout out and honor and acknowledge here, he has modeled time and time again. We're going to fight for the significance. We're not going to let the familiarity make it casual, make it not special, make it not matter. And so I want to challenge you. Every single one of us has the ability not to lose the significance in the midst of the familiar. I know this might be a wild thing to say, but I just felt so strongly as I stand here recording right now, this may just save somebody's marriage or relationship who is hearing this right now, because the thing that has damaged your relationship, and maybe this is for somebody with family, maybe this is for somebody with a friend, maybe this is for somebody with clients or with your team. But what has damaged the relationship is that the significance got lost in the familiar. But this is a choice, and it's not too late. And you can undo it. And so when we look at this story where particularly Jesus is in his hometown, and instead of it being a big hometown welcome and return and, incredible experience, he doesn't get to do any miracles. Because as he said, a prophet is never without honor except in his hometown. And in this story, they only experience the familiar. What they recognized, what was so common and ordinary and old news. Nothing to see there. I know what that is. They only experience the familiar, so they missed the gift. And God, I pray right now that you would show people as they listen to this even now, where are we missing the gift? Because it's so familiar. It's so sad to read this story and realize Jesus was still fully Jesus, showing up to his hometown. But specifically in that city, they didn't and they couldn't access the best version of him. Why? Because honor brings out the best in somebody. Honor brings out the very best. I wanted to share with you today, I have observed when I do an interview on whatever platform, whatever medium, whoever the hosts are, when I do an interview and I can tell what I say matters to this person, my ideas matter to this person, my conversation, this episode that we're recording, it matters to this person. When I can feel that, I end up giving one of the best interviews I've ever done. And yes, there might have been ideas, there might have been a message, there might have been a gift within inside of me, but I have to give credit where credit is due, to give honor where honor is due, and to say, when they make the moments matter, when they make the conversation matter, when they make the experience matter, I can feel a different version of me shows up. This is the same thing that happens in my client relationships, and really, for that matter, in my partner relationships. When somebody is connected to me in a significant way, either as a client or as a partner, they listen differently and they hear things differently and they process differently and they take notes differently and they receive differently, because honor brings out the best version. And when I think about the great interviews where the hosts have brought answers out of me I've never said before, when I think about the way that my clients make me better, when I think about the way that partners, you make me better, this challenges me to see how I can bring this culture into every interaction in my life, not just in a leadership context, not just within the span of my work. There's a reason I used a family example first, because honor brings out the best in people. I want to speak to the highest and best. I want to align with the highest and best. I want to, even right now, what I pray that this teaching is doing, call forth the very best in every person. Imagine getting to experience the best version of your partner, the best version of your team, the best version of your friends, the best version of your family, the best version of your staff. And I could go on and on. The best version of your community, the best version of your kids. Imagine getting to experience the very best version. I could have called this key number 2, honor expands your world and your experience. Honor, please write that down or type that out in the comments. Honor expands your world and your experience. Why is that? Because if you don't honor anyone, if you don't honor a gift, if you don't honor a message, if you don't honor an idea in real time, if you're not even open to see the significance or to receive the gift or to receive from an imperfect container, your experience in life ends up being so diminished and limited. You know, I quote often, the world of the generous gets larger and larger and larger, while the world of the stingy gets smaller and smaller. And this is, by the way, a universal truth. There is a guarantee of expansion for someone who chooses consistent generosity, an identity of generosity, a habit of generosity. But what if one very valid application of this principle is being generous with honor, being generous with our celebration of goodness? Just like if the world of the generous gets larger and larger and larger, you get to choose if you participate in that. You get to choose if you want to set into motion at cause generosity, to have expansion at effect. You get to choose in the very same way. Honor expands your experience. It determines what you receive, and you get to choose. One text says this, that the same message can go forth. And to some, it seems like sheer nonsense, direct quote, or in another version, another rendition, utter nonsense. And yet to others, the same message that somebody else perceived as sheer and utter nonsense, for others, the power of God is released, this text says. Or more literally, the original language says, the message becomes the ignition point where divine power is actualized and has full opportunity to transform. Now, when I read that, it stopped me in my tracks. Because, I really do honor the power of choice, the power of decision, the power of free will. I'm not going to get into all the metaphysics here, but I really do believe only you get to decide what timeline you're on in any given moment. And it's not just preset in the stars, a fate that you cannot escape. You get to choose. I believe God has given you that power and that choice. You get to choose the timeline you're on. But man, what wildly different timelines. A message can go forth. And to some people, it is sheer and utter nonsense. That is their timeline. That is their story. That is their experience. But to others, the very same message becomes the ignition point where divine power is actualized and has full opportunity to transform. Two people, one message. Different people, same message. Completely opposite results. And what is nonsense to one is life-giving, total transformation to another. Key number 2, honor brings out the very best. And only you get to choose the experience that you have. Before I move on to key number 3, I just want to take a second and say, thank you for being here with me and staying with me all the way through what I know is a very in-depth experience today. I thank you, I celebrate you, and yes, in the spirit of today's teaching, I honor you for valuing this work and investing in yourself in this way. If you are on YouTube, would you let me know in a comment how this is landing with you? And again, all opinions welcome, no wrong answer. If this is speaking to you powerfully and resonating with you, would you hit the share button and pass this on to some people who could also use it in your world? But just know, I am praying that you be richly blessed beyond measure in every possible way for investing in yourself and taking the time to learn all of this today. I'm going to move forward now to key number 3. The third way in which honor is the key that unlocks everything good in our lives. Key number 3 is this. Honor creates for us an experience of both love and safety. Key number 3, honor creates for us an experience of both love and safety. Now, we're going to talk about some basic spiritual and metaphysical principles here for a moment, okay? And by the way, I hope that you realize how all of these principles that I teach in all the different teachings go together and stack up and really work well with one another. And I pray that they all integrate a little more and more and more every time you listen to one of these. And every time we introduce a new idea into the mix and then connect it to others. But going with some principle here for just a few moments on key number 3. It is a spiritual truth. What we give, we always end up receiving. This is a cycle that always gets created in the invisible realm. It is a law, it is a law, it is a law. What we give, we always end up receiving. Let me just go through some examples here. The one who refreshes others, one text tells us, will themselves be refreshed. The one who blesses others will themselves be blessed. And we could just go right on down the line. The one who forgives will be forgiven. The one who judges, in that same measure, they will be judged. The one who loves, to that same degree, they will be loved. This is a universal principle. And now I want to apply it to our specific conversation today, because it is even explicitly stated in one spiritual text. We don't just have texts about refreshing and blessing and forgiving and judging and loving. There is even a spiritual text that gives us this principle and says, the one who honors will receive honor. The one who does not honor will only be lightly esteemed. Now, I'm going to quote this and refer back to this a couple of times today, but I want you to hear this on key number 3. When you create a culture of honor on all levels, flowing in all directions in your life, it benefits and blesses you because you get to live in a culture of love and safety. I feel like I've used this language with clients many times over the years, but when it comes to cause and effect, when it comes to what we put out with our choices and our energy and our intention, first we build a house and then we get to live in it. For better or worse, this is the law. First, we build a house, then we get to live in it. So if we forgive, we get to live in a house of forgiveness. If we judge, we get to live in a house of judgment. You are quite literally creating the reality that you end up living in. And I don't mean that in the most hokey, cheesy, mystical way, but in a real sense, in a spiritual sense, in an energetic sense. You build the house and you get to live in it. What we give, we end up receiving. And honor creates for us a culture of love and safety. See, honor says, I look out for you. Honor says, I am thoughtful, considerate, and kind to you. Honor says, how you feel matters to me. Honor says, I want you to feel celebrated and valued and loved. Honor says, you will always be seen, be respected, be acknowledged here. Can I just ask, isn't that the kind of culture you want to live in? Isn't that the experience you want to have? Isn't that the kind of house you ultimately want to live in? And listen, I'm not going to acknowledge it and give disclaimers over and over and over, because the truth is, if you are determined to misunderstand me today or to take me out of context, I can't fix that, and I don't really care anyway. But I will acknowledge, just to acknowledge the full picture here. Of course, there is a place for accountability, for boundaries, for standards, for truth, for communication, and all of these things. But please hear me on this key number 3. As a culture, honor says, I am not looking for opportunities to create shame for you, especially not out of projection to try to avoid my own. Instead, honor says, I am actively looking for opportunities to bring forward your best self, to celebrate the goodness within you. Do you hear? This isn't about letting people off the hook for wrongdoing. This certainly isn't about putting people on pedestals. And this isn't about giving people a pass for bad behavior. This is about grace. This is about an understanding that all of us will experience moments in our lives where we need grace. And honor says, I am not actively looking for opportunities to create shame for you. No, instead, I am actively looking for opportunities to bring forward your best self, to celebrate the goodness within you. And when I tell you, God has been working on me and my mind and heart with this for months. So anything I share, I'm sharing from my own personal journey of walking through it. No judgment or superiority in any of this whatsoever. But man, has it become apparent to me how many opportunities there are out there that are so easy, that are so marketed, that are so tempting to play the shame game. We have an entire media industry that traffics in it. And they know how to write a headline to trigger the exact emotional response to get you to click. And so much of what people share and so much of what creates celebrity gossip and pop culture news and so much of what people love to talk about is looking for opportunities to indulge in somebody else's shame. Honor is different. Honor is countercultural. Honor says, I am actively looking for opportunities to bring forward your best self, to celebrate the goodness within you. This culture opens us up to feel loved, and this culture opens us up to feel safe. And I am so passionate about this message today because I want for you to live in an experience of love and safety. The opposite, again, is shame. And shame, interestingly enough, takes away both the love and safety. I feel called to speak to this very directly today. Please do not buy into the lie that by shaming everybody else and participating in that and going along with that, you are safe and protected. Please don't fall for that. Please don't buy into that lie because it never works. And in the Eastern mystic and spiritual traditions, they have a teaching. The sword you hold over someone else will eventually fall on your own neck. The sword you hold over someone else will eventually fall on your own neck. Here's how I felt called to say it today. Removing honor and creating shame makes people feel powerful temporarily, but ultimately, in a culture where there is no honor, a culture that loves to create shame, a culture that defaults to projecting shame outwards, what ends up happening in the end is nobody feels seen, nobody feels loved, and nobody feels safe. In a culture where there is no honor and only shame, nobody feels seen, nobody feels loved, and nobody feels safe. I pray that you can hear how passionate I am about this message today. Now, again, this is something that I am learning and implementing and working with myself. I will reiterate again here, I don't claim to have mastered it. But I will say, as I look back on my life and specifically on the last decade of business, I have the least regrets around the places where I chose the honor path. Those moments, those places, those decisions left me feeling great, feeling proud of how I showed up, how I handled a situation. But I also have to reflect and say, looking back, particularly on the last 10 years of business, the places where I would most change something if I could go back are in most cases the opposite. The places where I did not honor, the places where I created shame, the places where I participated in some way or another in going along with the culture of shame. That's where I often have regrets. We never regret the high road. We never regret operating from love. We never regret the choice to honor. One more point that I want to acknowledge here. Key number 3, we're talking about the idea that honor creates a culture of love and safety. And we all are meant to live in that kind of culture. We all are meant to feel loved and to feel safe. And maybe the biggest thing that I want to make sure you get out of key number 3 is it doesn't work to try to participate in the shame culture and somehow escape it ever catching up to you. It doesn't work to say, I'm going to go along with the shame, go along with the gossip, go along with the humiliation, go along with the judgment, go along with the criticism. I'm going to go along with all of this because it's just what everybody does. It's just how it is. They're a public figure, whatever the excuses we use and tell ourselves, right? It doesn't work to say, I'm going to go along with that, but I'm exempt. I'm going to make sure I never mess up. I'm going to make sure I never am out of integrity. I'm going to make sure I never get canceled. Or if I do mess up, I'm going to handle it perfectly. I'm going to make sure I apologize brilliantly and in a timely manner. Can I make a confession here? I actually have a theory that the reason so many people love following those PR experts that dissect bad celebrity apologies over on TikTok, I actually have a theory. The reason so many people love following them, particularly if we're talking about entrepreneurs, leaders, content creators following, is because they subconsciously want a sense of safety. They want to know, I don't have to worry about that. That would never happen to me. I would handle it differently. I would apologize better. I would not let myself get canceled. And I really want you to hear on number 3, it doesn't work to say, I'm going to play the shame game with everybody else and just hope it never falls back on me in an unintended way. Not only is that just not smart energetically, because as I shared with you, the sword you hold over your enemy's neck typically tends to fall right back on yours. So not only is that not smart and not going to work energetically, but also you never get to be safe. You never get to feel loved. You never get to rest and not be hypervigilant and not be on guard when you're operating from that place. And so that is why key number 3 is so important to me. Honor creates a culture of love and safety. And I really just felt led to mention here and include in the discussion, shame content is everywhere. But if you look closely, you will recognize shame content doesn't change people. Shame content is everywhere, but shame content doesn't actually change people. There is one specific example I'm thinking of right now where somebody on a social media platform, the nature of their content is essentially just eviscerating millennials and Gen Z adults for what they perceive to be dumb, bad, irresponsible financial decisions. And listen, everybody's allowed to make whatever content they want to make, but I've noticed something as you pay attention, and especially if you go read the comments of any of these things, I've noticed something. This content is not actually serving an audience of people who need new information, who need new paradigms, who need to see things differently and gain a better understanding and make different choices. It's very clear to me this content is actually not reaching those people or serving those people or having that impact. Who this content reaches is people who resonate with the energy of better than. And they watch these interviews of people who have made quote unquote irresponsible decisions. And the host reacts, admittedly, in a very over-the-top entertaining way with great edits. But the host just reacts with shame, 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 shame. And I remember coming across this one day and it just becoming so clear to me. This content is pumping out shame for entertainment. And there is certainly an audience who is an energetic match for the shame because of the ego boost superiority that it provides. But the truth is, this isn't changing people. The people who actually might benefit from getting information, changing the way they think, making different decisions, It's not reaching them because shame content doesn't work. Shame content perpetuates the very pain, the very dysfunction, the very choices we're trying to get out of, but don't know how. We need love. We need safety. Key number 3 is that honor creates a culture of love and safety. Number 4, key number 4 today, honor elevates us at the deepest level. Write that down. Type it out in the comments if you're taking notes. Number 4, honor elevates us at the deepest level. And I love this key in particular because it makes it abundantly clear. There is no hierarchy. There is no better than, and there certainly is no pedestal in this discussion. It's not about having someone on a pedestal above us because, watch this, energetically, honor is not lowering ourselves while we raise up somebody else. See, that's pedestal energy. If you ever find, by the way, that in any department of your life, what you're doing is, I just keep seeing myself worse. And I just keep seeing this person, this mentor, this dating prospect, this external thing, this external desire I'm so fixated on. I just see it going up in importance, up in value, up in how badly I think I need it. That is the energy of a pedestal, and that is not what this is about. Because key number 4, honor actually elevates us. We're not doing it because the other person is honorable necessarily. We're doing it because of who we are and who we choose to be. We're doing it because it's our standard. We choose to call forth the good in everyone and everything. We choose to celebrate goodness everywhere we find it. We choose to live a life where everyone matters and every moment matters. We choose. And as we choose, honor elevates us at the deepest level. In key number 4, I wanted to share with you today, this is honestly the exact principle that is being expressed when people in any form of faith or spirituality around the world use the word namaste. Some of you, I know this is like basics 101. You already know it. But in case you were unaware, and some of you will be hearing this for the very first time, the word namaste literally means the light in me honors the light in you. Do you hear the reflection there, the reciprocation there, the mirror element, the equality? It's a reflection. The light in me honors the light in you. So namaste literally means I am honoring you from the place within myself that has the ability to do so. One scholar wrote, namaste is not only cultural or traditional. It holds a deep spiritual significance. It is a way of acknowledging the divine in oneself and others. Another scholar wrote, the idea of namaste, the concept and the ritual of namaste as a greeting is practiced in multiple religions, multiple faiths, multiple traditions as a way to acknowledge the divine spark that resides within each person. Recognizing the worth of the person in front of you connecting with a higher power? What if you honor the person in front of you because you are a child of God and so are they? See, this is why honor elevates us at the deepest level, because when I choose to honor, inherently in the process, I am reminding myself of who I really am, of how much value and worth I have, of the light and power and divinity that lives within me. It's a choice to honor the best of someone else from the very best of you. Do you see what I mean here about the reflection component of this? That's why I wanted to invoke this idea here. The light in me honors the light in you. There's a mirror, there's a reflection happening. And so I'm not calling forth or recognizing or acknowledging the best in someone else in a way that demeans or diminishes myself, but rather from the very best of me, I recognize the very best of you. And man, God has been working on me and speaking to me about this for quite a few months now, and I am still a work in progress with this. But I have to tell you very candidly, family, there have been moments where I felt God say to me right in the middle of a moment, let's not go there. No judgment, no guilt, no fear, no shame, no punishment, but from the most loving energy, let's just not go there. Because that's not who you want to be. And you don't feel good about yourself when you show up as that person. I've had moments, family, where I heard a still small voice that stopped me from having a conversation that I knew going in would not speak to the best in someone. I've also heard a still small voice in other moments tell me to reach out or forgive somebody or send a text to somebody that I wouldn't normally speak to. And there's just been a voice, an intuition, a guidance that has been gently speaking to me over and over and over again to go higher. Because key number 4, honor elevates us. At the deepest level, honor elevates us. It doesn't just bring out the best of others, it brings out the best of us. What if the very best version of you is the version of you that has a culture of honor? A culture where even the little things matter. A culture where you boldly and unapologetically celebrate goodness every chance you get. As we wrap up key number 4, I just want to share today, the best version of you is not the defensive, detective, judge, or jury that is always looking for somebody to fall, always ready to condemn somebody else and dissect their wrongdoing and pronounce the verdict of shame. That is not the best version of you. And you don't have to do that to avoid your own insecurity. You don't have to do that anymore to try to feel better about yourself. No, the best version of you is the one that reflects the best in others. The more good you reflect, the more you get to live in. The more good you recognize, the more you get to live in. The more good you celebrate, the more you get to live in. This is a law. This is a law. This is a law. The best version of you is the one that reflects the best of others. And that brings me to key number 5. Our final way in which honor is the key that gives us everything good. Key number 5. Honor results in promotion. Please write that down. Type it out in the comments for those keeping track with the timestamp. And stay with me. I know it's a long one today, but stay with me all the way to the end because there is so much goodness in the end of this teaching today. Key number 5, honor results in promotion. Now, let me acknowledge as we begin this final key, this is certainly not the only reason, or even the main reason, the primary reason that we choose to live in this space. I have done my very best today to unpack a full theology, we could call it, of honor. And so I hope and pray that you have heard my heart and gotten a good, big picture understanding of this principle. Please understand, this is not the only, the main, or the primary reason we choose to live in this space, but it is key number 5, and it is an undeniable principle that I knew I had to speak to because it is simply a key that is built into the universe. See, let's talk about universal law and metaphysical principles for a moment. Over and over again on this channel, we have talked about the connection between sowing and reaping. And of course, there is a reason for that. One of my favorite spiritual texts says, when you are in your power, cause and effect will always feel connected. You will remember who you are, you will remember the power you have, and you will see the connection all throughout your life between cause and effect. Now, the flip side of that is, it's a danger to not see the connection. Or maybe more accurately, we could say, it's going to feel very frustrating and bewildering to not see the connection. This is why, by the way, it is so vital when parents are raising kids that even if they grow up with a beautiful, abundant, privileged life, they learn cause and effect. They learn the idea of consequences. They learn that their actions have results and implications and ramifications. It is so important that we learn this lesson as early as possible because, once again, to be in our power, we need to be able to connect cause and effect. And so, on this channel, of course, I speak to that from the level of sowing and reaping. And I will always remind you, your seed determines your harvest, which, by the way, is really, really good news. Nobody else gets to determine your harvest. I don't get to determine your harvest. The economy, the industry, anything else you could fill in the blank does not get to determine your harvest. Your seed determines your harvest. And if you are not happy with your harvest in any realm, we want to check the seed, right? Basic principle here. Well, as we dive in to key number 5 today, honor results in promotion. This is a principle I want to add to the discussion, and I want everybody to write this one down. Honor is a seed. Honor is a seed. And I'm going to break down 3 specific things that on the basis of lots of principles, we know that it is a seed for. But let me just begin by saying, honor is a seed. We've already talked in this teaching about you want to build the house that you ultimately want to live in. So if you want to be refreshed, sow the seed of refreshment. If you want to be forgiven, sow the seed of forgiveness. If you want to be loved, sow the seed of love, right? We've already talked about this principle and about this connection, not even just today, but many, many times. And so the same principle applies here. If you want to receive it, give it. If you want to be living in it one day as a harvest, it's your job to sow it now. But let me break this down with 3 specific dimensions of this, okay? Honor is a seed in all 3 of these ways. Honor is a seed for access. In fact, we could say the seed for access. That's number 1. Number 2, honor is the seed for influence. And then number 3, honor is the seed for promotion, which of course all directly connects back to key number 5. If this was a series, I'd go into a lot more depth with every single one of these layers. But for now, as we move forward, let me just say, honor is the seed for access. Honor is the seed for influence. And honor is the seed for promotion. This is on the basis of so many principles. And what we know for sure is that you cannot reap a harvest anywhere you are not willing to sow. You cannot receive these things if you are not willing to give them to others, to give them away, to even give them freely. Here's a spiritual principle. What you are not willing to give, you will never truly be able to enjoy for yourself. What you are not willing to give, you will never truly be able to enjoy for yourself. And before I continue with my notes, I just want to say, I think this is so important, especially in this moment. With the entrepreneur world, the coaching world, the influencer and content creation world, because everybody wants access and everybody wants influence and everybody wants increase and expansion and promotion. And the wild irony is, many people have been told the way you get that is you start cutting people off. You start creating barrier after barrier, gatekeeper after gatekeeper that people have to go through to get to you. You should start charging for this and not giving this away and not letting people have this. And, I don't want to stereotype or generalize or present something in a caricature way that's not very fair, but I do genuinely believe there's a lot of advice out there that says, you want access, make yourself inaccessible. You want influence, start to be more unavailable. You want to be promoted, take your time more seriously. And I'm not saying that there aren't any potential helpful ideas anywhere in that mix, but what if honor is the seed for access, honor is the seed for influence, honor is the seed for promotion, and what if, just what if, the path there is not about Let me just focus entirely all on me, and let me make it hard for people to get a hold of me and to access me, and let me try to position myself as important and high level as I can. What if that's not the way? I just wanted to suggest gently. What if that's not the best path, or even a valid path to get there? You know, one ancient text talks about if you go to a dinner party with many high-profile guests, don't be the person who insists on forcing self-promotion, pushing your way to the front, making sure you have the best seat. The text says, instead, pour into the people there. Sit wherever they'd like you to sit. In fact, volunteer to give up your seat if needed. Let someone else have the best seat. Love people, celebrate people, show up for people in an unforgettable way. And the text says, you will be promoted. You will receive honor in the end. I am so fascinated about this because the story is an ancient parable that was told and written and recorded thousands of years ago. But tell me it's not relevant to LA today, to the online marketplace today, to entrepreneurs today. And here's what I know to be true that I want to share with you on key number 5. Ego's false story tells us this. If you tear others down, you will rise higher. You know, it may not say that consciously, out loud, explicitly, but make no mistake about it. That is absolutely the fuel behind so much of the competitive, critical, shame-based culture, especially on the internet. The subconscious premise is, if you tear others down, you will rise higher. And you can feel better about yourself in this moment, and it will actually catapult you somewhere to do so. This is what ego suggests. This is the premise behind it all. How exactly does this play out in the industry? This ego false story. If you tear others down, you will rise higher. It looks like people being known for what they are against more than what they are for. It looks like people building a platform by tearing down someone else's. It looks like centering your message around what everybody is doing wrong. And I know many of us have been told to do that. You might have even been told you need a public enemy to rally your people against. Look at this culture. It looks like people thinking that it is bold and courageous to publicly attack their competitors and peers. And it looks like entire communities being formed, not around common good, common purpose, common beliefs, but rather common enemies. These are just 5 ways that I think this plays out that I felt led to share for a moment. And I am just simply convinced after 10 years, none of this is adding value or safety or goodness, not to any of us individually, not to the industry, not to the world as a whole. I want to return to this truth. The one who honors will themselves be honored. The one who despises will be esteemed little. Do you see what I mean now? About honor is the seed for promotion, the seed for access, the seed for influence. And if you want to receive it, the best thing you can do is give it away. Not to cling on to it or hoard it or think that there is a limited resource that you have to try to redirect all towards yourselves. The best thing that you can do is to give it. The more you can celebrate the goodness of others and acknowledge them, the more you make space to receive the same in your own worlds. I promise you it works this way. The more you celebrate the goodness of others, acknowledging them, amplifying them, the more you make space to receive the same in your own world. And this is a law. This is a guaranteed spiritual principle. What you make happen for others, God will make happen for you. Honor is the seed for promotion. If you're willing to sow it, it will return to you and return to you multiplied, running over with so much room for more. The question that I really want every single one of us to start asking, beginning today, is, how can I add more honor to my world right now? I want to invite you into this question with me. How can I add even just a little bit more honor to my world right now? Because after all, honor is the celebration of goodness. How could we not deliberately, purposefully, intentionally celebrate goodness more and not see the goodness in our lives expand? I came to tell you today, if you answer the call, if you begin to cultivate a culture of honor in your own world, I'm here to announce your life is about to get more beautiful than you ever imagined. More individual moments mattering than ever before, and more goodness that you get to fully enjoy than ever before. This is how I wrote it down. This is how it came through me in my time with God the other day. Honor increases goodness. Honor increases joy. Honor increases value. Honor increases connection. Honor increases love. Honor increases opportunity. Honor increases growth. Honor increases relationships. Honor increases expansion. Honor increases friendship. Honor increases success. Two more. Honor increases receiving. And honor increases absolutely everything that you do. This is an invitation to increase in a way you've never experienced before. So let me ask you, how can you celebrate goodness somewhere in your world today? Now, in just a moment, we're going to pray together and integrate all of this truth and transformation. But before we pray, as always, I want to give every person who is listening an opportunity to sow. And I word it that way very intentionally because that is what this moment is truly about. It's not just a thank you or a giving moment or an opportunity to support, though it is all of those things, but more than that, it is an opportunity for you to receive this message in a personal way, to participate in this moment with me and to sow something into your future, because as we know, people who believe in and expect to harvest always sow. And whether this is something you've never done before in your life, or whether this is something you've done many times, I invite you to stay present and connected as I share a few thoughts here, because there's a lot on my heart that I know to be very powerful, and my goal is to build your faith and build your expectation, no matter who you are, through this section today. So, in the frequency of today's teaching, I wanted to explain for a moment how sowing really is working with principles of honor on a couple of levels. First of all, and this flows very directly out of the teaching today, whenever you hear a potentially life-changing message, you get to decide the level at which you receive. When a message is spoken, it's like the seed of the message is going out into the world, and every single individual who encounters it decides what they're going to do with it. Specifically, whether or not a seed gets planted in their world, and one that sticks, one that integrates, one that lasts and becomes a harvest. The fact of the matter is, when you choose to participate, you choose to receive on a greater level. This is a truth that is in all of these texts we have been talking about today. Receive a prophet in the name of a prophet, and you will get a prophet's reward. The people who recognize the significance were the ones that got the miracles. The people who were open for God to speak to them were the ones who received the divine message. So you get to decide, on what level do you want to receive and connect to this today, as a spectator or as a sower. There is no right or wrong here, okay? Please hear that. There is no pressure, there is no obligation, there is no judgment here, but there is possibility and opportunity. Infinite, in fact, of both of those things. Infinite possibilities, infinite opportunity here. This teaching, like all of mine, is brought to you by my incredible and generous partners all over the world. And in the spirit of this teaching, I want to take a moment and say, partners, thank you, thank you, thank you. I honor you for your support of this work, for the role you play. Thank you, partners. There are people who are hearing this teaching and it is changing their life now, and that is thanks to you. And you know, over the past year, I have put out over 100 high-quality pieces of content in various forms: videos, podcasts, episodes, various forms of teaching and support, all archived and permanently available for you. It is without a doubt the largest public content output of my life thus far. And when I began to go down this path, the risk that I was, of course, aware that I was taking is that due to us giving it away, due to it being a free gift, due to it being so widely available, I knew there was a risk that it might feel casual, that it might feel familiar, that people might not process the significance and the value of it. But I am so thankful to be able to say, partners, you have recognized the value here. Without there being a set price, without it being for sale, without you having to participate in an energy exchange, partners, you are people who recognized the value here. Some of you from the very beginning, and I could never say thank you enough. So I honor you today. Now, all of the options of how you can support this work are online at lovegrovepartners.com, and there are a few ways you can do it. Some people make a one-time gift as they feel led to do so. Some people give a set amount every single month. You can use the email address on that website. We will be happy to set that up for you if you would like. And other people give a set percentage every single time they receive. I'm not going to go into this here because I simply don't have time or space or room. But I did an entire series about the principles of generosity. I issued a giving challenge. You can check it out for yourself if you're interested. But as people give all around the world right now, I want to make sure I explain the honor connection here. So let me read you a spiritual text for a moment. This is found in Proverbs 3:10, and it says, honor God with your increase, with your first fruits. That means giving first thing, and in the most literal sense, giving the first tenth, if you're curious, the first 10%. But it says with your increase, with your first fruits, and every dimension of your life will overflow with abundant blessings. There are people in multiple faiths who have believed and practiced this principle specifically for literally thousands and thousands of years. I don't have thousands of years, okay? I have 14 years of working it. But again, the text says, honor God with your increase, with your first fruits, and every dimension of your life will overflow with abundant blessings. Now, honor, I will remind you once more, is a celebration of goodness. It is an acknowledgement. It is a recognition. And so as we practice this principle, when we receive, if we begin first thing by celebrating, by acknowledging, by recognizing God as the source, honor becomes the key. If we use this key when we receive, this ancient text gives us a divine guarantee that honor unlocks something. Honor creates access. Honor brings us the very best. It says specifically, when you use this key, every dimension of your life will overflow with abundant blessings. And I speak that over every single person who gives consistently when you receive. I decree and declare every dimension of your life is overflowing with abundant blessings beginning right now. Claim that truth for yourself today. Now, I want to explain just one more layer of the honor principle here. When people choose to sow in the context after hearing a teaching, specifically in a moment like this one. And I know because I've done it many, many times, they are practicing a principle of honor. I wanted to explain this so you understand what's going on here. And by the way, it should be noted, honor immediately makes you rare and unique because probably 1 out of 100 people do this. But to return to one of our core texts today, it says, receive a prophet in the name of a prophet, and if you do, you will receive a prophet's reward. Now, on one hand, yes, it is about expressing gratitude to the person and for the teaching, and I have done that many times with people whose messages have changed my life for that reason alone. But it's more than that. Yes, it's gratitude and appreciation, but it's more than that, and I want to make sure you hear this layer today. The principle goes, if you receive a message as if it is a divine message, you receive the full divine benefit of that message. And specifically, this is the principle of prophet's reward, we could call it. Everything the person delivering the message embodies will flow to you in the best way. Everything the person delivering the message embodies will also flow to you in the very best way. You know, I remember a moment where I heard a specific message that changed my life as a leader. And by the way, I heard it virtually. I didn't hear it in person. I heard it online, just like this one is reaching you now. And I want to share this in detail because I don't think I've ever shared this story before. So at the end of this teaching, the speaker invited everybody to sow a $58 seed. Now, for context, I just want to share all of this here so you have the story. It wasn't actually supposed to be given to the speaker himself. He was speaking on behalf of an organization, and they were doing a fundraiser, and so he was actually inviting people in that moment to sow into that particular charity, that particular nonprofit organization. But here I am in a room listening to this training coming across my screen, just like this one is reaching many of you right now. And I felt like I want to respond to this. And, you know, the original event from which this talk came had come and gone. So I actually felt called to sow the seed directly to the person who had just delivered this message that I could feel in real time was changing my life. So I took it upon myself to figure out, how can I get a gift directly to this person? Because I want to sow something right now as I receive this, and I want to sow it to them. I want to do it as a seed of honor. So I found a way to do that. And let me just also throw in the context here. $58 was the amount they suggested. And $58 in this moment for me might as well have been 58 million, because I was in a difficult moment for a lot of complicated reasons that are not important to go into here. But I know a lot of you understand what I mean. A lot of you will relate and have been in a moment. So $58, I knew it was small, but for me it was so significant. It might as well have been 58 million. I found a way that I could sow to this person directly, to say thank you and to receive this message that I knew was changing my life. And really, I want to point out, It wasn't even just about the person, though I knew that I wanted to give there. It was really about me and God. And I wasn't originally even going to share this story or go into all of this, but I felt called to do it. So it must be for somebody today. In that moment, I really felt like it's bigger than just this person, this word, this $58. This is about me and God. This is about the fact that I have been in such a difficult moment of my life. And yet, I believe God found a way to speak to me. God made sure that my breakthrough got to me. God made sure to connect me to exactly what I needed in that moment in time. And I could feel the significance of that. And it makes me emotional, even just thinking about it now. And so I wanted to give specifically to this person. I knew that I wanted to do that to say thank you and as a seed of honor, but also it was between me and God. And I wanted a record for myself that, God, I do actually believe you're with me no matter what the circumstances look like right now. And I choose to believe that I am hearing from you. And I choose to believe that I really can sow my way out of any season. So I gave. With a little bit of research, nothing sketchy, I promise, of how to get a hold of this person. It was publicly available, freely available. So I set my intention, I sowed my seed, and then I went to bed. What do you think happened overnight while I slept? What do you think I woke up to the next morning? Well, I hate to pull a Howard Stern here, but I am going to have to leave you on a cliffhanger just for a moment, and here's why. Let me explain the situation. At the time of this recording, we do not have the technology available to work with a single video file that is longer than 3 hours in length. Which is okay, because I'm generally not trying to create files that need to be greater than 3 hours in length. Today, we ran into an issue because as I was recording, it just became clear this one was going to go overtime. And I didn't feel like I could cut anything out here. It's all there on purpose. It's all there with intention. I wanted you to have every single moment, every single idea of this experience. And truly, there was nothing more I felt like I could take out, nothing that I felt at peace about editing, but also, I really want to take my time with our final prayer in just a moment. And I haven't recorded it yet in real time here, but I already can feel it is going to be one of the most powerful, significant, memorable prayers that I've ever done at the end of a teaching. So I also didn't want that to get shortchanged. I wasn't willing to cut that off or reduce that in any way. In light of all of that, here is what we decided to do. The full, unedited teaching that does not get cut off is posted right now up on my podcast feed. We are going to link it right at the top of this episode description. It should be the easiest thing for you to find. I hate to make you take an extra step and do a little bit of extra work here, but I promise you it will be worth it. So the top link in this episode description will take you right to that podcast. Up until now, it will be the identical teaching. Okay, this isn't like a director's cut that has all of this bonus content. Up until this point in the teaching, it will be identical to what you have just watched and listened to here on YouTube. But you're going to want to go to the specific timestamp of 2 hours, 55 minutes in. Use the link, go over to the podcast, fast forward to the point of 2 hours, 55 minutes into the episode and join me there. And I will finish the story. I will tell you how it ends. I will wrap up the teaching in full. And as I said, I will pray for you and pray us out with one of the best prayers I've ever ended a teaching with. That I can confidently say. So thank you for being with me here on YouTube. Thank you for liking this video and subscribing to the channel. And now join me on the podcast episode 2 hours, 55 minutes in as we finish this experience together. I'll see you there.